Hi, today we're going to be starting our Egyptian hanging plaques, and we're going to start with our Egyptian god plaque, which is going to be that rectangular part on the top where you've picked a head that you're going to design. I'm going to give you a slab of clay, but it is by no means ready to start carving into. We need to make sure we roll it out first to about pencil thickness. So you can see I have 2 pencils on each side. That's going to stop my rolling pin when I get to it. I don't use my rolling pin on the outside like this. I use it on the inside like this to keep better control over the amount of pressure I put on it. And I am leaning with all my body weight onto that roller, not very much on my feet. I'm in a standing position to really roll it out to the correct thickness. I'm going to click this. Okay. And as you can see, it is now the same thickness as my pencils, because if I move my clay out of the way, my rolling pin can't go past those pencils. It has that nice gap underneath, and that's the exact thickness of my clay now. This is not, as you can see, a perfect rectangle. We need to try and get it into a more rectangular shape. So we're going to have to cut it. I'm going to take my stretched out paper clip and I'm going to cut it in half. And I really only need half of it for my plaque. I'm going to set the extra to the side. We're going to need that in a little bit. And then I'm going to do the edges. Now when I put my paper clip in, I'm putting it all the way through down to the paper. You can feel where it scratches the paper when you push it through. And then you notice I have one finger here and I'm pushing at an angle, not straight up and down. Again, we're going for mostly a rectangle. Doesn't have to be perfect. By no means is this one perfect. And now I want to start adding my different pieces to it. We have that nice decorative edge that's going to go on the outside. So I can sort of start gently blocking that off so I don't accidentally put anything in it. And again, I'm laying this sideways. I am not cutting all the way through. I'm just putting a little indentation in. Corner to meet up a little bit more, just like that. So now I have my outside edge blocked off, and I'm going to cut out and put an actual relief sculpture into this. So I'm going to need that other piece of clay that I had earlier, and it's a little thicker. I want to start next by working on the god head. I'm going to carve it into here. I'm going to put this piece next to it so I can make sure it's within the height of those 2 other lines. See how I trim those off to be matching over here? We want to make sure it's not any taller than that. And we just want the general outline. So you'll need to look at your picture while you're doing this. Go nice and slow so you get the outline that you want. Don't forget their heads in profile. It's always looking sideways, whereas the rest of them is not. Put my scraps out of the way. And then when I attach these to one another, I have to do what's called scoring and slipping. I'm sure you've learned about this already, but let's review it. Scoring means you're going to scratch up the back of it in a crisscross pattern, that way. And then in the same area you're going to put it down, you're going to do another crisscross pattern. That's scoring. It's loosening up the clay. Then you're going to rub just a little bit of water on until it's slippery. Right here and here. You're going to line it up where you want it, and then gently, with your whole hand, push down gently, because you don't want to smush and lose that shape on there, right? So now I have my head attached. If you want to double check, you can always take it, turn it upside down, and shake it a little, make sure it doesn't come off, and then you know it's firmly attached on there. Of course, the next thing we need to do is add those details into the figurehead, which you can carve in with one of these, or any of the other tools that you happen to have chosen today. I'm going to do that for you in a fast motion. Now to point out, as I'm going through a lot of this, I'm doing it with a scooping motion, and every once in a while I'm pulling that extra clay off and dropping it to the side. That's important, otherwise it'll get built up and super chunky, and you won't like how your design turns out. It'll get very messy very quickly. So once you have your god head all carved in, then you can go back and you can start working on your edges around it, or if you wanted some sort of a pattern in the background. So for example, I have this really cool tool here. So if I wanted to carefully go through and add stripes or ribs to the background, I can do that now. Gives it a little bit of added texture, something that's visually appealing to the eye, so when people walk by yours, they're like, ooh, what's that going on there? And for the smaller areas, I just have to turn it sideways and go in and redefine those lines a little bit. That side. And there's several different tools that are similar to this in the bucket if you look for them. You can even go through on the side of a tool and just do them one at a time like this. Get the same effect. As you can see, this is my left hand and I am right-handed, so I'm not quite as good at these lines and making them straight as I was on the other side. My left hand's a little weaker than my right hand. There we go. But not too much different. And now I can go around the edges and add whatever decorations I wanted in around my edges. Be a simple pattern like this, or you can make it more complicated. Remember, at the top we are going to have to put in some holes, and at the bottom we're going to have to put in some holes. Don't make these lines very deep. They should be pretty shallow so that your clay doesn't cut all the way through and break. Sometimes that can happen in the kiln if you give it a stress point. It can break. And then I think I'm going to add some circles, tiny circles in around mine. And again, this is going to depend on which tools you grab and what your design idea is. You do not have to look like mine. Every artist has their own way of doing things, and that is perfectly okay. And now, when you're finished, what you have to remember to do, though, is grab that pencil, and we have to poke those holes in there where we're going to hang our string, right? So you should have one that goes through on this side in the corner. Pull it all the way through. And on the back, you'll notice it's sort of lumpy, okay? You want to very carefully smooth that out. If it's getting a little dry, grab just a little bit of water to get it wet. You don't want a lot. You don't want this dripping. There you go. And then I can smooth that out a little bit. Push that pencil through one more time. Make sure I didn't close up my hole. Pull it away from the hole, not into the hole. So there's one. I'm being very gentle on the other side so that I don't ruin my project. All that hard work to make it. Don't want to mess it up. You can even pull off some of this clay if it's too chunky. You notice I'm rubbing away from the hole to keep that hole intact. I don't want to go over it. I'll rub away from it. And then our holes that go down here at the bottom can actually be a little smaller. Trying to find one of these poking tools. And we're going to do 4 of those. A little one here. And we have to do 2 underneath to hang our name tags, right? We'll kind of center those a little bit. And then another one over here in this corner. And then same thing, flip it over, pull away from there. Now we're closed up a little. I'll open that back up. Let those close up. And see how, if you look in there, it has a little chunk you can kind of see. You have to make sure those get out, because if they fire like that, then it stays rock hard like that. And you have a little chunk that keeps blocking your thread that has to go through there. That'll be a real pain in your tuchus. There we go. So I have all of those smoothed out. I'm almost ready. I need what on the back? My name. I have several classes making these. You don't want yours to get lost. And you can also put your class code on there. So I am my own teacher, but you're going to put your teacher's initial and then what your grade level is, 4. So you're going to be H4 or Z4 on the back. And then these will go on the drying rack. These look great, guys.